Hello there, and welcome back to my channel. So not too long ago, I did a critique video about one of Jeremy's videos from the Geeks and Gamers channel. I was reviewing the Kenobi series. And I found a lot of issues of what he had to say, and I feel like I debunked most of the nonsense that he was peddling. But after some time from making that video, going back, rewatching it, listening to what he had to say, I then saw other issues with some of his logic that I didn't really address, that I would really like to talk about. And be just nothing else if not thorough when it comes to debunking this kind of overinflamed nonsense that fandom menace types like to portray with the new content that Disney is creating with Star Wars.
And we start out with Reva, the bestest ever. She's the best. No one can question that, and if you do, you are a racist, you are a sexist, and they will shame you on social media for it.
Okay, so this was one of the first things that came to mind where Jeremy, I don't know if you would call this pearl clutching or over dramatizing something, but the way he's portraying the situation is that Reva's character is this perfect, flawless, can do no wrong character who, you can't criticize in any way, and if you do so, you're a racist, asshole, bigot, whatever. Which is, it's part of his fictional narrative that Disney and Lucasfilm and Star Wars has called anyone who criticizes Reva's character in any way racist, which is 100% false. It always seems like the Fandom Menace watches this weird alternate version of these shows and movies that we get that we of the general public never get to see, because it seems like, from Jeremy's perspective, they introduced Reva's character as this new Inquisitor that we've never seen before, and she comes out onto the scene, and even higher-ranking Inquisitors like the Grand Inquisitor grovel at her might for no apparent reason, and cede all command and control over the situation to her just because, as she's flaunting all this grand power that for some reason she's not the one in charge, even though she's clearly the most powerful. But in reality, if we just watch the show, that is never at any point expressed to be the case. Jeremy's trying to pretend that Reva's character is somehow the greatest of all time, but this quickly falls apart when you just watch the show, and everything about what the show portrays her character to be directly contradicts that, as if even the show criticizes Reva's character. Even the show goes out of its way not to portray Reva in this perfect, unstoppable light when she's completely disrespected by other members of the Inquisition, belittled by the Grand Inquisitor himself, and even when she kills the Grand Inquisitor, she does it as a cheap shot, not as a direct challenge to his power and his skill in battle. So even the show criticizes her character. So this idea that Reva's perfect, Reva's the greatest ever? No. False. And I can prove that by just watching the show.
To be, because that is what Disney's Star Wars is.
And lastly, this is an interesting thing that he says, because it's something that many Fandom Menace people like to use. It's a term that's constantly used and recycled throughout the internet and other Facebook groups of anyone who's mostly dissatisfied with the way Disney's been handling Star Wars. And that would be, of course, the term Disney Star Wars.
They ripped off themselves. That's right, Disney Star Wars has ruined so much that they are now ripping off themselves. This is how bad Disney Star Wars is, because that is what Disney Star Wars is.
And right away, obviously, we can assume that this is not a respectful term. It's meant to be considered that anything Disney does with Star Wars is to be considered off-brand Star Wars. It's not real Star Wars, which is incredibly immature and childish, and it also exposes a rather interesting mindset when you consider the fact that Jeremy also later in that same video also says that he enjoyed the Rebels TV series.
Because in Rebels, a show that I very much like, even though it's not as good as the Clone Wars, I did like Rebels.
Which, when you consider that Lucas sold Star Wars at this time, and Rebels was created at this time, the only logical conclusion is that Jeremy gave a pass to something that was created during the Disney era. But it's not considered Disney Star Wars. So really what this mindset is exposing is that it's really more of a blanket term for anything that the fandom menace doesn't like is considered Disney Star Wars. And I just find that completely absurd because you can't have it both ways. You can't simultaneously say, oh, Disney's got this iron grip over Lucasfilm and they control every single thing that happens and controls every single story that comes out of Lucasfilms. They make sure every story is to their political agenda, while simultaneously these other shows that the fandom menace seems to approve of were these secret shows that were created under Disney's radar, right? And then they were covertly released out onto the Disney platform without Disney knowing about it. And it's just this never-ending loop that only ever gets created from inconsistent logic. And I've really got to tell you, this kind of inconsistent logic, it breeds for a weak mind, and a weak mind breeds very, very poor arguments. Arguments like Disney's so lacking in creativity that they're ripping off themselves from a story that they themselves created, that even Jeremy approves of. And let's be real here for a minute. Can't create anything new when Disney and Lucasfilm are creating these vast amounts of shows that are coming out, all of which being stories that have never been told before. Andor, Rogue One, Solo, Resistance, the Kenobi series, The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett. These are all stories that were not in existence before Disney got in control of Star Wars. And I'm pretty sure there weren't any stories, there might have been stories that were similar to them, but there weren't stories about a Mandalorian taking a baby Yoda around on adventures around the galaxy. There weren't stories about Ahsoka Tano. There weren't stories about characters like Andor or Han Solo the way we got them. All of these are new stories. And the fact that you have to take one example of them doing something similar from a cartoon show to a live action show and then pearl clutch that Disney can't do anything new. Could you not see how that could look like you're just making a mountain out of a molehill? What anti-sequel fans, what anti-Disney fans, what fandom menace fans are going to have to learn is something that basically almost every other fandom out there has learned from themselves a long time ago, and it's high time they finally caught up with the pack. And it's really quite simple. Disney and Lucasfilm together are going to make shows that you are not going to like, and you're free to dislike them. But you're going to have to move on. Because there's also going to be shows that are going to come out inevitably that you do like. And you're going to have Lucasfilm and Disney both together to thank for that. I personally, if everything Disney's created so far with Star Wars is considered Disney Star Wars, I will happily, without any hesitation, take that brand. Anyway, I'd like to know what your guys' opinion of it is. What do you think of the terminology Disney Star Wars? Do you think it's fitting, or do you think it's just a childish, immature slander against the company that's been creating so much Star Wars that we just collectively as a fandom don't even know what to do with it all? But I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on it, so please comment below. I hope you liked today's video. I hope you return for more. It would really mean a lot to me if you could subscribe to my channel, like the video, and maybe share it to someone you think might enjoy what I have to say. And really, I've got to tell you, I'm genuinely thrilled with how things have been going. Week after week, I've been managing to get out at least one video, and so far, we've actually surpassed over 50 views, and consistently multiple videos on my channel, all in regarding to these talks that I do about the fandom menace mostly. I've received over hundreds of views, and that's just something that, you know, usually takes my videos my earlier videos a lot longer to generate, but but my newer videos are generating out a lot faster. So really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. It gives me the morale to really keep doing what I do, knowing that there's people out there listening, and I hope I can continue being worth your time. So, thank you. And may the force be with you. Always.